politics since 1986 at the federal, provincial, municipal, and school board level. And I just looked at this and realized it actually went in that order. I started working federally and have worked ever since. And the last election I worked on was actually in the school board. So I've been, I'll come out to you as a New Democrat. So I've been involved in many unsuccessful campaigns. I worked municipally and at the school board level on some successful campaigns. I've learned a lot from both, as you always do, and it's very inspiring to work on a campaign based on the values and messages you agree with, and certainly those are the hardest to lose. But the reality is that in politics, it's not all about principles. Hopefully, so you were here for that speech. I'll tell that one in the other room. Anyway, it's about name recognition. Being part of the party that people are responding to in some cases, and certainly it can be in your geographical location. And certainly in 1993, when I worked at the provincial level and actually was an employee of the official opposition, who were the New Democrats at the time, pretty much anyone could have run for the Tories and won because the name was Ralph Klein. So it didn't matter. We did everything we could, you know, and it just didn't matter. People were voting for Ralph Klein. So that's sometimes how it goes too. I think we're lucky this evening because we're sitting with two very principled individuals who have succeeded in politics, and that is certainly what keeps me going. Well, it seems like you should be. The worst thing you can do is be cynical, and that's hard. If you're not in it, if you're not working on a campaign or running for a campaign for the right reasons, you shouldn't do it at all. Campaign management is all about reaching people in an organized way. The single most important factor in political campaigns is reaching people effectively. When I was preparing for this evening, I was sort of panicking because I haven't worked on a campaign for a while, and you know, we very quickly moved into a really high-tech world. So I started to look at what was going on, of course, in the United States and the current conservative leadership race here. And it seems through the high-tech world, of course, that you can get your message out to people quickly and easily and constantly. So I started looking around, and while the paraphernalia you can order is astonishing, like seriously astonishing, what Howard Dean and Belinda Stronach have been doing is coffee parties. So there we go. The strategy remains meeting one person at a time and getting your message out. The essential element of any campaign comes down to two things: people and finances. And I'll just tell you a very quick story. I met a woman a few years ago called Jane Cawthorne, and she was interested in running for the public school board. And somewhere along the way, it was mentioned that I had worked on various campaigns, so she called me and mentioned a couple of people that we knew in common, and they suggested my name, so I said, come on over and we'll have a chat. So she came into my backyard and started talking to me about the issues of the school board. She started talking to me about things like CLCs and blah, blah, blah. And I just sat there listening quietly, and I was very interested, but don't have children, I've never had children, will never have children, and don't know a whole lot about school politics. So I sat there quietly and listened for a while, and then I said to her, can you recruit 100 volunteers and raise $10,000? She said, well, so anyway, you know, and so my concern with closing schools is about, and I said, yeah, well, that's really interesting, but can you recruit 100 volunteers and raise $10,000? Well, it took me about, I don't know, 30, 40 more times to ask her that question, but she did, and we won. And I'll just tell you this one little thing. In the Calgary Sun, we were called a slick campaign. Now, asking me to help, what she didn't realize is, you know, it is a bit of a machine. It doesn't matter where you worked or how you worked. It's a bit of a machine. So I said, great, yeah, we'll get pamphlets, we'll make them flashy. My friend Doug will do it, Nancy will help with this, we'll do this, we'll get this all together. And, like, we were way bigger than anyone else, and we didn't realize there was anything wrong with that. So, anyway, it was successful. But, you know, sometimes you want to temper things probably to what, you know, what people commonly do. So definitely at the school board level, it generally, I guess, isn't as glitzy. So anyway, the success that Jane had was certainly about the people that she was able to reach. Successful campaigns, again, as I say, reach as many voters as possible, as many times as possible. And lots of it definitely does come down to name recognition, and I think that's an important point at the municipal level, and I've certainly seen that happen over the years. Party politics are different because sometimes you've got policies already lined out and there's a party structure and all of that happens. And the most frustrating experiences I've ever had is when people from somewhere else come to run a campaign or candidates for someone else from somewhere else come to work in that community for the first time. You don't have any roots there, and it certainly shows quickly. And it certainly has been some of the most frustrating work that I've done. But anyway, we're not talking about that tonight anyhow. It's essential for organizers, including the candidate, to have some kind of connection to the community you want to represent. Strategy has to come from there. All is well in theory, and you've got all these ways that you know how you're going to get to people and what you believe about the tax structure and what you believe about all kinds of different things. But at the end of the day, you have to understand the local issues from a community perspective. Being involved in the community in a sincere way is essential. The most successful campaigns I've worked on have really come down to the community. When the candidate is connected, half the work is done for you. Always be concerned, for example, if the candidate has trouble finding enough people to sign a nomination form. That's a really bad sign. And I've connected with people that I barely met before, and I've gone to their door and asked them to sign forms, and it's really not very good. But if that happens, and in some cases, of course, in party politics, it'll be more like 100 people, but it really isn't. And also reflect on that. Just look around you in your communities and who you would get to not just sign forms, but who you would get to help you out. The candidate should be able to mobilize support. If they can't, who will? The growth of the volunteer base should happen naturally as the candidate meets people. So now I'm just going to talk really quickly about the nuts and bolts of it all, and I will be brief. There's a few essential things about running a campaign. They're fairly straightforward, but I think lots of times people miss what it's really all about. Communications. Getting your message out in a clear, concise, easy to understand way is really important. Make it about the issues, not about you and how much you've done in your life, because I'm sure that's really interesting for people. But if they can't get their road fixed, that's not going to matter too much if you've got lots of education. And one thing that I think is also really clear is not to be afraid of where you stand on issues. We had someone come to our door. It's very hard to make these things anonymous. We had a candidate come to our door in the last election, and he was a very nice gentleman, and he gave me a brochure. And after he left, I started reading his brochure, and it talked about his work and what he owned, but it didn't say what. And I kept thinking to myself, why would you do that? If you own a business, it's also a way to get a little free advertising for your business, maybe what's going on. So, because I'm a political hack, I became very suspicious, but not a cynic. So I got out and I'm not kidding about this, I got out my magnifying glass because there was a picture of him holding a check, like a big check, but it was a really small picture. So I got out my magnifying glass and read what it said on the corner of the picture, named his business, which I will not tell you about, but it led me to want to run down the street and chase him and talk to him and say not very nice things. So, the thing is, you shouldn't be doing that because then you're not honest, right? If you're afraid of what your business is, maybe reflect on that. That was just my little editorial.
I was invited to the opening of that restaurant.
Were you?
Yeah.
Excellent job. Yes, I'm so happy you did.
I just drove it.
Yeah, I wanted to go there myself often for different reasons. So anyway, that's what I think. So all your communications must flow from there. Ridiculous things like colors are really important. Colors of brochures, colors of signs, all of that stuff really does matter. It's all about a communications plan, and that's what you need to have. That doesn't mean it has to be really big and really slick and all of that stuff. It can be done, especially now at home, easily, cheaply, quickly, but do it right. Do it so that something's going to stand out, and so people will know a bit more about where you stand and who you are.